Hai, Assalamualaikum. Selamat datang ke podcast Kita Family. Hari ini, saya, Didi dari Kota Kinabalu bersama 3 orang lagi di studio kita di Kuala Lumpur. Kita ada Desiree,
Hai, salam sejahtera.
Nori
Hai, Assalamualaikum.
dan Anit.
Hello.
Dalam podcast ini, kami akan membincangkan perihal yang berkaitan dengan makna serta kepentingan hidup bermasyarakat, menghargai keunikan serta kepelbagaian sesama kita dan meraihkan masyarakat kita yang berbilang agama, kaum, kepercayaan, rupa dan juga keupayaan. Kita menghargai hidup secara inklusif yang mengambil kira keperluan segenap lapisan masyarakat, terutama bagi mereka yang kurang atau berkelainan. Untuk pengetahuan semua, minggu ni ketika kami merakamkan episod kita kali ini, beberapa hari yang lalu, komuniti autism Malaysia mendapat perkabaran duka di mana mantan NASUM, Persatuan Autism Malaysia, telah meninggal dunia, iaitu Allahyarhamah Puan Felina Faisal. Beliau telah meninggal dunia pada 30 Jun yang lalu. Di sini saya memohon agar kita semua dapat menghadiahkan Al-Fatihah, dan bagi mereka yang bukan Muslim untuk memberikan moment of silence untuk arwah. Al-Fatihah. Well, arwah merupakan seorang advocate yang telah memberikan sumbangan demi sumbangan dan menerajui usaha advocate untuk komuniti autism sejak sekian lama. In fact, kalau nak dibandingkan dengan saya kalau beliau seorang tokoh, saya di sebesar mungkin sebutir pasir je nak dibandingkan dengan usaha-usaha yang telah beliau lakukan. Dan di kalangan kami, ahli-ahli podcast Kita Family, Nori dan Adit berpeluang untuk mengenali rapat arwah dan mungkin dapat berkongsi sikit sebanyak kisah tentang arwah. Mungkin kita boleh mulakan dengan Nori.
Terima kasih Didi. Saya rasa memang sangat bersyukur kerana dapat mengenali arwah Kak Felina. Saya dapat mengambilnya Kak Felina dan dia memang membahasakan saya dan Anik juga sebagai adik-adik dia.
The Powderpuff Girls.
Powder ke power?
Power kan?
Powder boleh lah.
Boleh lah, apa-apa lah.
That is a privilege of my life. Somebody that I got to know that was inspiring, was comforting, was such a good human being. Dia seorang yang akan sangat kami rindui. And then termasuk SK juga yang tak dapat bersama dengan kami hari ini. Actually kali terakhir Nuri dapat berjumpa Kak Felina bersama-sama dengan my other kakak lah, which is SK. Dan kami berkesempatan untuk berjumpa dengan dia after her last radiology treatment, kerana it was dia tetap terus cuba melalui bermacam-macam rawatan, bermacam-macam treatment lah, to continue fighting. Dia memang tak pernah berputus asa langsung. So sungguh pun kami telah diberitahu bahawa penyakitnya memang serius. Kami juga terbawa dengan semangat dia untuk cuba teruskan to fight and to keep going. And apakah pendorong dia yang paling utama? Surely her children, especially Naim. Yeah, so Kak Felina ni dia telah berkat that came to her from two beautiful children. Nasha is the wonderful daughter, and Alhamdulillah Nasha pun dah berkahwin, and she got another son. Joshua came into their lives. And then of course there is Naim, and Naim is the one yang autistic. Autism tahap Naim ni pun adalah pada level 3, ya. So maknanya memerlukan sokongan, support yang agak tinggi. So I think this was the inspiration, and sebenarnya kalau kita tengok ada juga tulisan-tulisan, banyak tribute for Kak Felina. So I don't know that I want to be reading those lists. I think you can just definitely look those up. I want to share maybe 2 quick personal things. I think for me, pada masa dia sedang melalui rawatan yang begitu berat, saya rasa saya tak tahu kalau nak ganggu dia dengan masalah-masalah that was going on with me and the things that were going on with Timo. But she asked Anit, how is Nuri and how is Timo, what's going on. So Anit adalah ceritakan sikit, kita telah masuk satu fasa yang agak mencabar. This was a bit earlier this year. Dia mengambil masa dan dia bagi tahu Anit untuk memesan kepada saya sekian, all the different things that she wanted me to know. And I was very touched by that. And I'm grateful that I got to see her. Lepas tu dapat berjumpa dengan dia. So inilah, memang tanya sesiapa yang dapat mengenali Kak Felina ni pun mereka akan menceritakan benda yang sama, iaitu seseorang yang dia macam seolah-olah tidak memikirkan apakah yang dia terpaksa melalui, dan dalam keadaan yang paling susah, paling mencabar, dalam keperitan apa jua pun, dia masih ada sesuatu di dalam diri dia untuk memberi dan terus berkongsi, memberi. Like that was constant. That was constant in the years I got to know her daripada tahun 2017. And the other thing I wanted to share was Khairi kata pesan lah, since he heard that we were going to give the tribute. Pada masa dia menjadi menteri di Kementerian Belia dan Sukan, yang pertama orang yang menggalakkan dia, pushing him lah, I would say, but in her way, she was, she says, she talks about the pushy parent and things like that. You can read about it, but she doesn't do it in that pushy way. She has a beautiful way of doing it that is direct, but still very, understanding and warm, and to get you motivated lah, to inspire you actually, right? And and that's what Khairi said. He was inspired to do that. She was the one that said, this is an opportunity. Bila lagi kita akan ada menteri yang mempunyai ahli keluarga yang autistik? So apakah, she was saying, what can you do for belia autism? Is there something that you can do? What can you do? And there was, of course, lepas tu discussion of so many different ideas. So hingga ke hari ini, Alhamdulillah, program ILKBS, Institut Latihan Kemahiran Belia, masih mewujudkan program latihan inklusif untuk belia autism dan juga berkeperluan khas and things like that. Those training programs are still open. In fact, masih ada intake. Intake is open right now sehingga ke bulan 8. So I think we'll share that in our show notes. So he wanted to say that, that to pass on lah, that she was the one that really urged him to do something at KBS, and memang ada inisiatif yang telah telah dilahirkan from that, right? And there was a Rimau Cafe, so many things happen. I'm so grateful. The first event from We Rock the Spectrum Kids Team pun bersama-sama dengan Kak Felina juga. I'm so sorry, we're not supposed to take that much time, but I just want to say, Kak Felina, if you were here, I would say that my words are not enough to thank you. I will do what I can to continue your work. So grateful to you. Terima kasih Kak Felina. I will doakan you. Moga arwah diberikan tempat yang sebaik-baiknya, terus dirahmati, dan moga apa yang telah arwah sumbangkan membawa kepada segala yang baik dan kemudahan untuk keluarganya yang ditinggalkan. InsyaAllah. Over to you, Anit.
Amin. Amin.
Amin.
Okay, Anit.
Kak Felina was one of a kind. I cannot describe her in any other way. She had this exuberant personality. She was such a people person, and she could relate to anybody, not just budak-budak, kepada yang dewasa, kepada orang tua. She just had a way with people, and a way that you could never get offended with her. Sebab dia nak jadi pushy pun cara yang berhemah. That was Kak Felina.
Dan berjenaka.
Dan kalau situation jadi terlalu tense, dia akan buat joke lah. Tiba-tiba semua dah gelap, then dibawa balik benda yang serius dengan cara yang berhemah, then you cannot get offended. That was Kak Felina. And she always had a piece of advice for every situation or a kind word. My first meeting with Kak Felina was when she reached out to me as a lawyer, because she was concerned that a girl had been potentially molested potentially by somebody who was neurodiverse. So her concern was not just for the person who was neurodiverse, but for the victim, because dia tidak mahu persepsi yang negatif terhadap orang-orang neurodiverse, supaya orang yang bukan neurodiverse will accept them. So that was the first impression. Empathy beliau sangat tinggi. Sebab and the sense of justice. Kalau you tak boleh maafkan semua kerana neurodiverse, but you need to also accept people the way they are, and accept that the other person may not understand the feeling for a neurotypical. And that
and also to remember that sense of justice, kan, she was very clear to say that the expectations even of neurodivergent people, because she was very confident that neurodivergent people, kalau given the right support, guidance and everything, memang akan faham the do's and don'ts.
Yes.
So she's like, no, we cannot just give lesen, right?
Yes, tak
because
boleh.
of certain diagnosis or things like that, to do something that can harm someone else.
Yes.
So she had definitely a very balanced view, even though she was, no doubt the champion
And the strongest advocate.
of autistic people and people with disabilities, neurodivergences, things like that. But it's because that's what made her special, right? To be sure to see everything, and that everything had its proper place. And I think that's why also to be able to, get along with everybody, right? So she didn't just come from the I'm only going to defend my community as if other people didn't matter, right? Everybody mattered. And she
Everybody
wanted
mattered.
to, uplift everyone. Not like, okay, you're separate, this is separate, and like somebody else has to take care of that lah, because I'm going to take care of this, It was never like that. That's how we got this Connecting Special Moms
Yes.
WhatsApp, right? I don't know how
Yes.
to look at that after this.
Because she just felt everybody deserved the same. And kalau kita tengah advocate untuk orang yang neurodiverse, kita perlu juga advocate kepada orang yang lain yang tidak kurang upaya. So she had this balanced view, and that's why she was so effective on the MBOKU. So, and she was a sports person. So to her, music, movement and sports was important for everybody.
She was an international official, kan, for swimming,
Yes.
not just local. So
Yes.
that was sort of the day job also. Yeah.
So,
many
KBS
things.
was just right down her alley. So I'm really glad she bugged Kyrie.
Yeah.
I saw her exactly a month before she passed away in hospital, and she was still very encouraging. And I did say to her, Kak Felina, get better. When we are ready for guests on the show, you're going to be there. that's going to be a dream, but
She's on the show.
she's on the
She's
show.
on the show.
Sebab kita
She's
menyebut
on the show today.
We
pasal
brought
arwah.
her with us today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kak Felina. Thank you
Yeah.
for everything. Thank you for championing so much for the neurodivergence in Malaysia. And may you be rewarded abundantly wherever you are.
InsyaAllah.
Amin. Ya, semoga arwah ditempatkan di kalangan orang yang beriman dan diberikan ganjaran atas usahanya membantu komuniti autism dan kasih sayang kepada anaknya Naim.
Amin.
Dan of course bila kita mendapat berita sebegini, it's like satu wake up call untuk kita semua.
Betul.
Dan hari ini kita nak bincangkan satu yang kita fikirkan sejak mendapat berita kehilangan Allahyarhamah Puan Felina, sebagai seorang ibu. Kita membayangkan apa yang akan jadi apabila kita meninggalkan dunia ni. Kita dah tak ada, kita pass away, we died. So the topic is when we are gone. This is part 1 because of course kita nak bincang dalam satu episod, it will be very long dan kita pun perlukan masa untuk membuat research yang lebih supaya kita dapat present satu yang lengkap kepada kita pendengar dan penonton kita. So when we are gone, today kita nak bincangkan harapan dan bayangan kan, bagaimana kehidupan anak kita yang kita mahukan setelah kita tiada. People may say that it's a dream. One can only dream. But from a dream, apa yang kita gambarkan insya-Allah menjadi panduan untuk kita usahakan.
Yes.
Betul tak?
Ya.
Kita nak yang ni, jadi apa yang kita perlu buat? Kita nak yang ni, jadi apa yang kita perlu buat?
Betul.
So hari ni part 1 kita bincangkan tentang macam mana kehidupan anak kita nanti setelah kita tiada. Jadi okay, tak apa. Hari ni saya bagi peluang. Siapa nak mula dulu?
Adik.
Adik.
I pointed over to
Oh
adik.
yalah sebab
Sebab kita dua
sebab
tengah
apa ni tadi kan?
recovering from emosi kat sini.
Yeah.
Silakan.
Okay.
Or help.
Bab ni memang sangat susah lah untuk saya. I think I've spoken on it on previous shows. Inilah memang kerisauan saya setiap malam. It is on my mind constantly. What will happen to Hans when I'm not here? Sebab chances are I'm the youngest in my family and immediate family. And when I'm gone, it means semua yang anak saya kenal pun tiada. So how do I prepare for that? I don't have an answer for that now. How do I prepare for that? I'm hoping to learn. And of course, yesterday was very much a wake-up call and a very emotional reminder because right now, my mom is currently struggling with stage 4 cancer. So when I heard the news semalam, the blows just kept coming, kan? And seeing my mom is a trooper. I mean, she's a fighter.
Another fighter.
Yes. But I can't help but wonder what if that's me and we are in a situation where both my son and I need to be cared for. And my hope is that someday we get there. I hope in future episodes we will be discussing things like this. Assisted living, supported living, and all these kinds of living, right? My dream, my utopia is a supported living where I can grow old with my child and we both receive the support that we need. So that is my call into the universe. That hope that we can be cared for together in the same facility. And my hope is when I'm gone, he gets to live a life on his own terms. Kan? But what that looks like is mencabar sebab Hans ni dia tak boleh bercakap. Sekarang pun we memang actively working on assistive communication devices. Memang I always talk about it in a very upbeat and optimistic manner. Tetapi I have to confess memang susah. tak senang. Tak senang sebab kebiasaan komunikasi Hans dengan saya is very much non-verbal. Sebab saya dah biasa, dia pun sudah biasa. So having this device in the mix means saya pun kena rajin lah to make him use it. Tetapi the comfort is already there kan, in having that non-verbal means. Tetapi saya kena berusaha. Saya kena terus berusaha to help him communicate so he can communicate with other people besides me.
Yep.
Right? Yeah, so anybody else want to weigh in on your hopes and
Okay.
what you think?
Bagi saya, like, the opportunities that have to be there for all our kids have to be accommodations together with more with the basic rights. So, I don't mean so basic that just a roof over their head, clothes to wear and food to eat. Now, that's not my dream. Itu bukan impian saya. Bagi kesemua anak-anak kita perlu memberi lebih daripada itu. It is a little bit like kalau dia boleh buka bank account, macam sekarang dia ada e-wallet, dia perlu diberi peluang untuk continue to have the e-wallet. Perlu diberi peluang untuk continue to have the financial independence. Kalau nak beli aiskrim kegemaran dia, dia perlu, dia tidak boleh
Dihalang,
dipegang, dicakap, ini tak boleh, ni budget dia macam sikit ni sahaja dan orang lain gunakan. So that has to be something that is adjusted. Bagi kesemua yang neurotypical, anak-anak kita bila membesar pun perlu live within our means, ada budget. Tapi, small things that give us joy, the ability to play music and dance when he wants to, the ability to live comfortably, to wear the kind of clothes without tags. So just to make those simple choices is what my dream is for all neurodivergents as we embrace them in Malaysian society.
Yeah. So basically Desri mahukan kemampuan berkomunikasi untuk Hans dapat berkomunikasi dengan orang lain juga.
Yes.
Maksudnya orang lain pun ada kemahiran untuk berkomunikasi dengan whatever cara yang Hans perlu dan dapat gunakanlah. Kalau Hans pakai AAC, kita nak orang lain yang hidup bersama dengan Hans nanti pun menggunakan AAC lah. Tidaklah macam, ya of course satu hari nanti kita pun mengharapkan Hans boleh bercakap nanti kan, tapi if AAC is the main method, then AAC it is. And then bagi Anit pula, kehidupan lebih daripada basic necessities, basic right, ada autonomy, boleh buat pilihan, ada joy in life. Tak adalah macam semuanya ditentukan oleh whoever yang menjaga nanti, like kan. Jadi sebab kita sebagai ibu bapa pun kita tak control anak kita menentukan every little thing kan. Kita masih lagi memberikan mereka option. Dengan
so Didi,
itu
can I just say, Kak Felina told me this. A lot of these kids can work, and I believe that of all our kids. It's just the level of what they work and the independence and their employability. So when you have somebody who has, let's say, got a high school diploma, kalau that's like lepasan SPM, kalau orang neurotypical boleh dapat kerja, so orang yang neurodiverse pun patutnya boleh dapat kerja tanpa diskriminasi.
Boleh?
Yeah.
Betul.
So and then bila dapat gaji tu, janganlah gaji dia lagi kurang daripada orang neurotypical. Dia kena selaras lah. And then kalau ada potongan,
setimpal lah.
Kalau ada potongan KWSP, SOCSO, PCB semua, the same thing applies. As we said, no special treatment just because they're neurodiverse. That means don't say that, dia ni kurang upaya, so tak payahlah SOCSO, tak payahlah ni. No. Same thing. Same deductions, but same opportunities.
Yeah, same opportunity indeed. So selama ni kalau macam kita kata, inilah typical way kan, ada SPM and then kerja kita nak masyarakat untuk menjadi lebih terbuka dan lebih kreatif
Ya.
Betul?
kan, dan cuba
Betul.
cuba memberi peluang dengan cara yang mungkin selama ni kita tak terfikir, tak sama dengan 10 tahun lalu, tak sama dengan sekarang pun. Ada cara kan untuk kita memberikan pekerjaan dan membuatkan mereka dapat menjana pendapatan mereka sendiri, insyaAllah.
Ada
Um,
caranya. So maybe before, I think we're going to go on break soon. But can I say something before that,
Yeah.
Didi?
Boleh.
Okay, so I think kalau kita maintain kepada maybe berita semasa atau antara perkembangan-perkembangan semasa yang menyentuh komuniti kita, I would also like to mention usaha daripada HRD Corp Malaysia. So diorang HRD Corp baru mengadakan National Training Week, which is fantastic. Not just because ada peluang untuk highlight all the things that are offered for training to all Malaysians, but this time really all Malaysians, because they have kicked off a neurodivergence and neurodiversity inclusion impact, was I think that's what the program is called. Sekarang ni akan ada juga latihan yang sesuai dan boleh dimanfaatkan oleh individu-individu neurodivergent, which is fantastic, right? Because that is satu inisiatif daripada kerajaan. So antara benda yang dulu tidak ada, sekarang slowly ada. It's a fantastic good like first step. I think we'll share also another thing that we want to share in like the show notes. So that is something that, you know, again sangat kita harapkan bahawa masyarakat kita, orang-orang neurodivergent, tidak akan tertinggal daripada inisiatif besar yang diambil oleh kerajaan. So, you know, thank you so much for that. It's kita harapkan benda ni akan berjaya dan akan berterusan, bukan sahaja pada tahap itu. But this is exactly one of those situations. I think if our kakak were here, SK would say, this is like this is all the 4 A's.
Yep. The action.
And the action part.
Yes.
Itulah yang sangat-sangat penting, right? We talk about the action part. There are things that can definitely happen, and this is, if we think about it, this is part of adding on to our dream of what is available for our kids, like you know, peluang seperti peluang pekerjaan atau peluang untuk mendapat kemahiran di mana mereka boleh menjadi seseorang yang bekerja secara sendiri, self-employed. Mungkin akan jadi usahawan ke, you know, like an entrepreneur or something like that. Boleh juga. Like, you know, why not? Why not be self-employed? Because kadang-kadang nak bekerja untuk orang atau kepada, you know, dalam sebuah organisasi atau syarikat agak susah, right? But the main point is to, if possible, then a means to a living, earning your own living, right? For those who can. Or something that also supports the family, which was the other fantastic thing. For the HRD Corp part, they included the parents, and we are starting to hear initiatives now. Hopefully, we'll let SK or Kakak announce that in own good time. Oasis Place and her work is also continuing to do certain things like this involving the whole family, even though it's in the context of work for the neurodivergent. Which is really interesting,
Yes,
right?
it is.
How would you ever imagine before that we thought that, oh, we're going to help and take the whole family so that this one person can go work? That is amazing accommodation, you know? So, yeah, I wanted to finish off also part 1 with something that's also good.
And positive.
Yes, positive.
There's
yes.
hope. There's hope. I
Yes,
think,
for
because as
sure.
we always say, our expectations are very high, and when someone takes that step of action, it's actually a huge step.
Yes.
It's a huge
Exactly.
step.
So
thank
let's
you,
keep
HRD
aiming
Corp.
high. Yeah.
And our role is to make sure everybody knows
So
about
with
it and knows the opportunities out there. And the more we discuss it, the more Malaysia becomes inclusive, dan kita dapat memberi peluang kepada orang yang sepatutnya dapat peluang ini untuk cuba dan usaha dalam membuat sesuatu dalam konteks upaya mereka.
Yes, so bila kita cakap tentang opportunity yang ada sekarang daripada kerajaan, bukan daripada ibu bapa, kita tahu bila kita tak ada nanti, peluang tu masih ada untuk anak kita, insyaAllah kan.
That's exactly right.
Exactly. Yep. Okay.
Dengan itu, can we take a break?
Yes.
Okay. Let's take a break and we'll see you again soon. Selamat kembali ke podcast Kita Family. Kita meneruskan perbincangan kita tentang apa yang kita harapkan, bayangan kita tentang kehidupan anak-anak neurodivergent kami apabila kami tiada lagi. Saya nak jemput Desiree untuk mungkin kita explore topik financial maybe.
Yes. Ni memang satu topik yang sangat penting untuk semua orang sebenarnya. And seperti Nuri ingatkan saya tadi masa break, memang ini pun anak yang neurotypical pun parents biasanya akan beli insurans pendidikan dari baby lagi.
Betul?
In addition to the medical insurance, akan membeli insurans untuk pendidikan. So financial planning sangat penting. Dan memang sebagai family saya lah sebagai contoh, kami telah pun invest dengan various options so that in the event of, so like my own insurance memang ada price value on it. So bila saya tak ada, memang there's a cash value which goes to my next of kin. Likewise dengan my husband as well, kan? In addition to other savings yang kita ada. So
So pelaburan dan menabung, dua-dua penting.
Dua-dua pun penting ya. So it's not just to have one. Memang yang ni we decided even before kita tahu pasal the neurodivergent, before we know Hans was autistic. Memang ini dalam plan kita.
Yeah.
Sebab we are from a family di mana we work for what we have now. Kan?
And we save.
So we save and so that our child or children, you know, God willing someday, children will have it a bit easier than we have it now, kan? Tetapi bila anak kita neurodivergent, there is another aspect yang sangat membimbangkan saya. So in the event something happens to me and my husband, my son will have quite a bit of cash to manage. Tetapi sekarang ni dia dalam level autism level 2. Masih tidak boleh bercakap, and there is no way of me knowing what the future holds for him. Dan tiada pula adik-beradik, kan? So sekarang ni, and I don't have the answers, I'm just saying sekarang ni kena start sekarang lah, as Nuri reminded me again, kena fikirkan appointing trustees. Trustees pun dari segi not just financial planning, but in the event he has health issues, in the event he needs to be in a supported living, let's not forget properties. He will inherit properties. Who is going to manage that for him? Dan satu lagi topik yang sangat hangat saya rasa, is the Mental Capacity Act.
Yes.
Di mana di negara ini kami belum lagi ada Mental Capacity Act. So even if I were to appoint a legal trustee, guardian to manage all these finances semua, how valid is it going to be?
No, currently it's not. You know, you're right. Currently it's not. So that's why we are fighting so hard, because at any point in time, even if you are alive, you boleh ada dalam keadaan yang tiada capacity mental. Dan pada masa itu, kita perlu melantik while we still can and while we still have capacity, plan for the future dan melantik orang untuk manage everything around us, whether it's health, wealth, or personal decisions of welfare.
Yes.
And I think that's what you're getting at. Memang welfare decisions are very, very important.
Exactly.
Especially when you have a child who's neurodivergent.
Yep.
Okay.
Because like so for example, if I'm preparing to have my waris make decisions for me, I am in of sound mind and the mental capacity to appoint, okay, my husband, please make this decision on my deathbed, for example, kan?
Okay.
What about my son when he turns 18? I don't know whether he will have that mental capacity to make that decision. So legally, am I allowed to make that decision for him? You know, I'm not asking you to answer this question now, but I think these are the questions in our mind.
So currently you are, because you are the actual legal guardian. But what about the future?
When he turns 18?
You know, when he turns
Yeah.
18, he's an adult. But if he doesn't have mental capacity, then he has a surrogate decision maker. So we want to have a mechanism where you can permanently appoint a surrogate decision maker, which will be held legally valid
If it's not the guardian.
If it's not.
Ah.
if it's not the guardians.
Okay.
Does this exist now?
No, it doesn't.
Not yet,
Not
right?
yet, but we
Yes.
have to give credit to the Deputy Law Minister who has announced that we are looking at it and Malaysia will look forward to having one in the near future. Let's continue to champion
Yep.
and lend our support to say this is something that is really needed. Malaysia memerlukan akta mental capacity yang setakat ini Malaysia tidak ada.
So that's our hope. One more hope.
Yes.
Another huge expectation. So we hope that we throw this out into the universe and we hope it will come to fruition.
And with that, it's also benda berkenaan education. So Didi macam kalau katalah kita pergi kepada career talks bagi anak yang neurotypical. Mereka selalu mengingatkan kami bahawa pada masa ini ada certain jobs that are available, but we don't know there might be other jobs available in the future that we cannot foresee. So kita perlu memberikan anak-anak kita, tidak kira keupayaan mereka, certain skill sets untuk adapt.
Yes.
Ya. So jika kami perhatikan dulu mana ada coding dan data management sebagai career yang stable and progressive. Sekarang career itu adalah satu yang most sought of. Sebab kita dah melangkah ke alam digital dan ada banyak lagi career-career yang memang wujud yang mungkin sesuai dengan
Individu neurodivergent.
neurodivergent dan mereka boleh kerja dari rumah, ada flexibility asalkan ada projek tu menjadi bagi satu tempoh masa yang mereka boleh deliver tanpa social anxiety, tanpa perlu keluar untuk membuat social engagement dan ini adalah satu peluang. So kalau ada peluang-peluang itu untuk orang ramai, perlu ada peluang yang sama untuk kalangan yang neurodivergent sebab mereka pun perlu diberi peluang yang serata untuk menjalani training atau kerja-kerja yang mereka layak untuk buat. So the education has to continue, not just training. Kalau ada kursus-kursus yang khas, mereka pun perlu diberi peluang kerana kadang-kadang tahap perkembangan mental mereka tu lambat sikit. So apa yang budak neurotypical sedia untuk membuat bila mereka 17 tahun, orang yang neurodivergent mungkin sedia bila mereka 29 tahun atau 30 tahun.
Yep.
So
Kita pun pernah dengar dalam berita ada you know, I think ada yang hendak memohon untuk masuk ke kursus tertentu dan mereka mempunyai diagnosis, right?
dan
Tetapi
kad OKU,
dinafikan
Dinafikan.
sebagai contoh. So we don't want to see that in the future lah.
Yes.
Right? You don't want to see that in the future ataupun kita nak di mana penilaian, whatever kind of assessment and things like that is given, you know, appropriately lah. Kan? So that if you're denied on the, you know, a
Merit.
basis of
Proper merits.
of merits and things like that, and not just you know, denied because
Of a
mungkin
label.
of a label that not everybody understands
label,
yet. So that's why the kesedaran, awareness, all that for the whole community, society and all that is so important, kan? Not just for our community. Better understanding. So there's so many things lah yang kita memang you know, we will talk also more, I think, next time, termasuk kategori OKU sebagai contoh. You know, so many things that will affect all these things that we worry about when we are not around.
Yes.
Kan? Actually, Didi, I am
Yeah.
curious. Can you share if you personally have something that is important to you, right? Like your own family, your family values and things like that. What matters to you bila you dah tak ada for the girls?
I hope they can be together. Walaupun at the moment sekarang macam kakak cakap tak nak duduk dengan adik, but I really hope that they kalau tak duduk sama-sama pun, because this is talking about two neurodivergence kan,
Yeah.
sama-sama ada diagnosis,
Yeah,
sama-sama
not
ada
forced separation
limitation.
lah kan.
Dapat duduk bersama dan ada akan terus mendapat guidance, and then dari segi financial management pun, dari segi safety is my utmost worry lah, sebab being girls kan, nanti takut menjadi mangsa kepada sekarang ni tak payah neurodivergent pun, orang-orang biasa pun kena scam lah kan, kena jadi mangsa all these predators.
Gangguan
So
sexual.
dari segi
Yeah.
safety, so itu my utmost worry is definitely safety, and then dengan harapan mereka dapat bekerja dan make their own money to sustain this life. Tak adalah nak mengharapkan ada orang yang terpaksa menanggung mereka. Jadi menjaga tu rasa perlu ada yang guide, jenguk sekali-sekala, ambil tahu, giving attention, giving love, and also ada connection lah dengan keluarga. When we talk about I'm no longer there, maybe my husband pun dah tak ada, so we're talking about extended families lah. Mungkin uncles, aunties, cousins, especially cousins, because cousins kan umur lebih
Sebaya.
yelah macam Desiree cakap lah kan, kalau yang lebih tua tu mungkin lah akan tak ada dahulu, akan pergi dahulu lah.
Yeah.
Jadi yang muda-muda ni lah cousins. So itu yang macam sekarang ni kami dalam fasa yang meraihkan sepupu mereka, supaya semua sepupu rasa being a part of our nuclear family. Supaya macam okay, you ada sepupu kan, Afia dan Emilia ni sepupu you all. It's unspoken hope, unspoken hope.
But today we speak about it.
Yes.
Now we speak about it. Even with my husband pun kan, dia pun cakap mengharapkan with all the kindness that we show towards our extended families, it will return back to our girls when we
InsyaAllah.
are
Yes,
no
God
longer
willing, for
here.
sure. Yeah.
But I really
Yes.
believe that before we want to do charity kepada orang luar kan, we look into our families first.
Yes.
I'm not saying that I'm doing charity to my families, it's not that, but we share whatever we have with our extended families, because yang ni lah yang akan kekal. Macam even friends come and go, like you talk about teachers come and go,
Yep.
kan. So apa yang remain would be firstly personally families lah. Even kalau they live in supported living ke, duduk dekat rumah sama-sama autistic girls lain ke, I want someone yang boleh care about them, ambil tahu kan, cakna about, yelah tahu Afia buat apa sekarang, not necessarily staying in their house. That's what I hope for lah.
Would that translate to values and religious beliefs, Didi?
Yeah, definitely. Sebab tu kita bila dengan keluarga, kita talking about same religion, kita sama bangsa kan, and then whatever routine kehidupan, value tu satu yang familiar lah. Sebab family kita tahu apa yang kita buat pada anak-anak kita. In fact now pun kita di Kota Kinabalu, semua adik-beradik Zaid dan ibu Zaid, ibu mertua saya telah datang melawat. Dan baru tadi sedang kita membuat rakaman ni, abang saya hantar mesej menunjukkan tarikh penerbangan pergi dan balik untuk datang ke KK melawat kami. Jadi walaupun
orang sebelah saya ni pun ada peluang nak
keluarga.
pergi melawat dekat KK juga.
Your
KFam pun ada family member lain.
Can't wait. KFam's coming to Sabah.
So bila dia datang tu, maksudnya macam kehidupan kita ni dia boleh nampak macam mana. Okey, apa rutin harian, apa yang anak-anak kita makan, macam mana kehidupan yalah layan contoh yang paling mudah lah. Anak-anak saya kan lebih selesa berbahasa Inggeris. So dia tahulah, fahamlah, oh okey dengan Afia dengan Amy ni kalau speaking ni laju sikit, kalau cakap bahasa Melayu kan nanti ada yang tantrum, ada yang tak faham. So itu antara yang perlu mereka faham. Tapi untuk mereka faham, kita kena dedahkan dan yalah let them see how it goes, supaya yalah na'uzubillah, but it's unavoidable. Tapi tak tahulah siapa yang pergi dulu kan, kita ke anak kita ke. So that's how it goes lah in my situation. Nori nak share something?
Yeah, ladies, if I can bring it back to something a little bit more immediate lah, bila kita sebut tentang bila masa yang kita tak ada tu, if I can maybe be very specific, kalau boleh saya nak menyebut sedikit secara khusus pada masa di mana kematian ini berlaku, So dalam keadaan macam ni, dan sudah tentu keadaan kira suatu yang paling sedih di dalam hidup kita, emosi yang sangat tinggi, macam-macam dirasai oleh semua ahli keluarga. So of course sometimes kita dah terbawa dengan kehilangan dan emosi kita sendiri, tetapi masih ada seseorang yang memerlukan kan. So maybe it's better if we can to prepare in advance. Yalah, mungkin orang kata so morbid and why you talking about this thing now and all that, but sebab kita kena prepare in advance. It has to include also things like kita tak lari daripada benda-benda yang kita pernah ceritakan sebelum ini, dari segi membuat persiapan untuk sesuatu yang akan datang one day. Yang ni kita tak tahu timing, but kita tahu akan berlaku. Right? So whether it is social stories, whether it is talking about it now, all those things actually are very, very important. So I know for example ada pakar-pakar yang pernah memberi kira tips and advice. Some of it includes things like at that time of either the burial, the cremation, saying goodbye, all these kind of things, somebody has to remember to take photos, to put sort of in the book, to untuk ceritakan, to explain nanti to the neurodivergent individual what has happened. So these are very difficult things if you think about it, but it actually has to be done because, again, remember, as a friend has reminded me, change is already difficult for them. And this is going to be like maybe the most devastating, biggest change of all, where you cannot even attempt to try to reverse it. Right? It's not like somebody is going away, then maybe ada chance dia akan datang balik. So it's like you have to look at all sorts of things, and what is important for the preparation of perkara-perkara yang lain is also important, which is to remind what are the things that are not going to change. InsyaAllah, God willing, right? What are the things you can still count on? Apakah perkara-perkara yang masih ada untuk kami yang ditinggalkan, untuk individu yang neurodivergent tu sebagai contoh? Apakah rutin yang masih boleh dikekalkan, yang masih kita boleh teruskan at least dalam masa terdekat, ataupun we need a longer transition lah. There is going to be this big fat huge thing that we have to deal with, tapi fikirkan bagaimana primary caregiver, especially, right, because we're talking about death of us as parents. Siapa yang mengganti orang yang memainkan peranan tu? Siapa? Tak ada mana-mana individu pun yang boleh step into that role. I don't think our husbands can jump into the role of the stuff that we do.
No.
And by the same token, if something happens to them, we cannot jump into the stuff that they do.
Yep.
So what do you do? Well, one of the things and one of the only possible things, but imagine the amount of prep that takes, even itu setelah kita sedar, that is mungkin kita akan perlu siapkan macam satu senarai dan antara semua kategori yang penting bagi kita akan ada perkara-perkara umum seperti tanggungjawab keuangan, tetapi akan ada perkara yang khusus seperti benda yang begitu penting bagi keluarga kita, which is things like, you know, special traditions all the way to kepercayaan, right? And mungkin akan ada situasi di mana ramai orang akan take over peranan tertentu kalau masih perlu, right? So all these things require a lot of planning to think about, but we have to think about these things even in that from those moments lah, not just the big picture going forward, but how to manage that moment of grief and loss, because yang tu pun, what if it leads to depression,
mental health
right?
issues,
Kemurungan, dan kalau mungkin kesedihan yang amat sangat yang susah untuk
ditangani,
dan untuk diterima. Then you don't even get to talk about, how can we make sure that good quality of life continues? It's like, it's something that, that we even have to think of even in those moments. So that's why, again, the importance of family support, again, your community, again, everybody together. Because kalau the whole family tengah bersedihan, kita mengharapkanlah best friend ke, jiran ke, somebody yang mengenali keluarga kita dan anak neurodivergent kita yang kata, okay, bab ni I boleh buat.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to do this. Because diorang semua tengah menangis. semua macam, it's hard, right? So that's why that whole thing about so many things again have to be set in place way before this thing happens. And sebenarnya actually kita tak tahu bila benda ni berlaku. Ajal maut bukan di tangan kita, di tangan Tuhan. Maybe esok pun kita tak ada.
True.
So that's why
You
so
have to
early.
start
So that's why it's
now.
it's so difficult.
Yes.
These things are hard to do, right?
It
So we're
sounds
gonna
like a
bring it up.
manual. It does sound
It is,
like
no, it is a
sound like a
manual.
manual.
There is a manual, by the way. There
Mm.
is a manual, and I think we will have a part 2, and we can continue to share. Are there any other bits? Because I went and just said social story, things like that. Anybody want to jump in and tambah to this? Please don't forget in that moment when it happened. What are some
the
important
community
things?
bit, I think the community bit here is huge, and that kept popping up to me as you were saying all that. Prepare for now, because if we're talking about our immediate family, they will be grieving us themselves. So this is where we can count on our community. We always talk about the village, beyond the village. So I think we need to start having those very difficult conversations now. Like, I know I can count on my best friend and tell her, okay, the day after my funeral, I want you to play only hip-hop music and celebrate my life. So find people like that you can talk to from now itself and tell them.
Kalau kita
Prepare
ada
them.
you pergi dulu, you can count on us.
Yes.
Thank you.
And the same,
Yeah, of course. Of course. It works.
You want us to take over your house pun boleh, eh?
Please. Well, I'll give you the keys right now.
So basically it's providing stability kan, bila the immediate kan, bila kita pasal
Yes.
providing
Stability,
stability, ada benda yang still remain the same kepada anak kita. Mungkin kalau perlu berpindah pun tidak immediately.
Betul.
Please give time kan, nak tukar apa-apalah, nak tukar sekolah ke apa ke, all that perlu ada cara lah, which is kita belajar kan method tu, tapi kita bila kita dah belajar, kita tahu buat, tapi kita dah tak ada. Jadi yang untuk orang yang nak take over tu tahu macam nak buat, itu yang betul lah cakap Anit, kita kena ada manual.
Yes.
And hopefully dengan sharing kita hari ni, bukan sekadar ibu-ibu atau bapa, parents neurodivergent children yang dapat idea what to do, tapi masyarakat jugalah yang ada keluarga, ahli keluarga, maksudnya extended family. Kalau anak saudara you jadi anak yatim dalam dalam keadaan tiba-tiba, then what do you do? So you kena ambil tahulah all this macam Nori cakap, mungkin social story, all this different ways kan, tak sama dengan family typical.
And boleh tak kita nak meminta komen lah, especially kalau ada idea kan?
Yes, please.
Apakah idea of like what do we do in this situation? Mungkin
How can
ada
we
orang yang
prepare?
in
Yes.
that process of preparation atau mungkin pernah melalui. Please share with us, because we also have to do like the part 2
Yes.
and then talk about like also what is available, what other things we have to do now. Tak cukup kan? Tak mencukupi untuk kita pada episod di sini saja, dan kita mengharapkan sangat input feedback daripada semua
penonton.
Sila
Again, it's the
lah
community.
share.
It's a community.
Yes, it's a community. So
Every little bit helps.
we say it at the end, but I'm going to insert it now. Please follow us on all our social platforms. Of course, sekarang ni kalau menonton di YouTube, boleh terus komen di situ. Tapi kalau tidak, boleh saja di Instagram, di Facebook, di TikTok.
DM, direct messaging,
yes,
because it might be
exactly.
something you don't want to share. We will read it.
That's fine. But yeah, share with us, because this is a big thing. This is a big thing. Macam mana? And then especially dari segi bagaimana masyarakat boleh membantu. We haven't even talked yet about, the role of maybe government, a social safety net. What is it that we can hope for at that level?
Yeah.
Because, kita tahu kadang-kadang memang ada antara perkara yang if we go back to the core and the basic pun, tak mampu dan kita tak tahu macam mana. So some good things that we know we have is that pencen, especially pencen bagi warga
Penjawat
yang
awam.
penjawat awam bekerja dengan kerajaan, all that can go direct definitely kepada
Anak
the
OKU.
anak OKU, for example. So those are some good things. But of course not everybody has pencen. What if it's somebody that's not going to have a pencen?
Yep.
So there's
Hence the savings policies and whatnot.
it's a lot.
Yes.
yeah.
No, and are there villages? Ada tak tempat yang safe space yang mereka boleh pergi tinggal dulu untuk adjust
Transition
transition. To adjust to the loss, and then lepas tu mencari satu tempat yang baru untuk then build a new life. Diberi masa dan diberi support dengan
transition tu satu, but what if it's
permanent.
a place to live? So many things to talk about nanti kan.
Absolutely.
So boleh kongsi pengalaman, harapan, apa yang kita mahu, apa yang kita harapkan. Tapi yang paling penting saya rasa kita nak dengar pengalaman lah, sebab kita antara kita berempat ni pun kita belum melaluinya. I mean keluarga terdekat lah kan. Nak tunggu kita dah tak ada, memang itu dah pengalaman lain, kita dah tak nampak. Tapi kalau ada pengalaman dalam keluarga terdekat, boleh share apa yang penting. Sebab harapan ni tak sama, kita ni bayangan je. Tapi bila pengalaman melalui sendiri, episod-episod ni mungkin dapat kita pun dapat melihat lah like apa yang penting sebenarnya. Nori ada sesuatu kan nak share?
I think I want to share. Ni perkongsian daripada seorang lagi, to me is jago autism jugalah, another fellow mother, rakan sahabat to a few of us actually. Her name is Jacqueline Ang, a very good friend. Masih ada, thank God. And as somebody that personally I have been talking to about things like this, actually, this subject about, kalau katalah tahap keperluan Timur masih, tinggi and things like this, then we have to face these things, right? What does it look like? And then of course the ultimate, and with everything happened in the last couple of days, with arwah Kak Felina dah tak ada. We've been talking about it again. Jacqueline Ang ada pernah menulis di dalam blog dia, and I thought it was beautiful. That hopefully will encapsulate lah. Dia akan merangkumi ke semua apa yang telah kita menyebut hari ini dari segi harapan kita lah setelah kita tak ada. Dia telah menceritakan tentang janji dia terhadap anak dia. Anak dia Ryan, janji bagi Ryan. I'll read it in English, and then I will also go over it again in Malay. So, the promise to Ryan that he will lead a life worth living. A life that allows him maximum level of choice and control over his own life. a life filled with genuine choices and interests. There's a balance of work and play, and he is surrounded by people who love him. Ya, so kita memang sangat-sangat mengharapkan untuk anak-anak kita sebuah kehidupan di mana anak kita tetap mempunyai pilihan, pilihan yang seluas-luasnya, sebaik mungkin, supaya dia mempunyai pilihan untuk kehidupan dia sendiri. Dia diberi peluang untuk benda-benda yang dia minat dan dia suka, dan untuk memilih apa-apa mengikut kehendak dan keinginan dia juga. So bukan sahaja like as Anik said before, not just benda yang kita anggap perlu, but based on preference, right?
Yep.
Just like all of us, we also want to have those little things that add joy to our life, kan? Kita pun inginkan benda-benda itu yang memang secara peribadi membuatkan kita happy. Ini yang membawa makna kepada kehidupan kita. Kita nak juga untuk anak kita dia ada keseimbangan lah di antara benda-benda yang mungkin dianggap sebagai kerja atau tugasan dan peluang untuk play, bermain. Dan maknanya benda-benda yang dia suka, right? So aktiviti ni adalah that sort of balance in life. Dia tidaklah nanti dipaksa untuk melalui rutin yang dia memang tak ada pilihan lah. Itu je lah. So itu anggap macam terpaksa menjadi hamba kepada suatu keadaan hidup dan rutin kerana mak bapaknya tak ada. We don't want that, right? Dan of course finally that sungguh pun kita dah tak ada, anak kita tetap akan mempunyai orang di keliling yang memang menyayangi dan mengasihinya, right? That the love will still be there. You're not going to lose that love just because I'm gone. You will still be surrounded by love. I think that was something that's so important. So thank you, Jack, and then we will actually talk about more. I want to share more of Jack's work because antara yang dia telah lakukan adalah untuk set sort of like a template, and we will talk about that further. InsyaAllah we'll be able to share that with you.
Rasa dah tak ada apa kita boleh cakap untuk untuk summarize kan harapan kita. Memang dalam surat tu itulah yang kita semua nak, betul tak? Untuk anak kita terus mendapat kehidupan yang meaningful, bahagia, bermakna, insyaAllah. With that, this is another long episode. Kami harapkan pendengar dan penonton akan mendapat takeaway message yang sangat penting kali ni, sebab ini yang kita tak boleh elak lah. Kita nak kata tak nak fikir pun tak apa, tapi apa nasib anak kita nanti? Jadi kita perlu fikirlah kan. Kita perlu ambil berat, kita perlu buat ambil tindakan bermula sekarang. Selain daripada mendengar, menonton di YouTube, Spotify, kepada mereka yang mungkin melihat snippet kami di Instagram, di TikTok dan di Facebook, pastikan juga anda subscribe kepada YouTube channel kita, Kita Family Podcast, sebagai tanda sokongan kepada podcast kami. Dengan itu, sehingga kita berjumpa lagi dalam episod yang akan datang. Terima kasih dan not selamat malam sebab you can be watching this anytime, right? But
Jumpa lagi.
Jumpa lagi Didi dan Kinabalu dan sahabat-sahabat saya dari KL. Bye.
Bye. Assalamualaikum.